You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. On today's episode of the podcast, we review the second test match between England and New Zealand from Edgbaston. It's the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast, and let's get started. Let's have a look at the match summary from the second test match at Edgbaston between England and New Zealand. England batted first and made 303 all out in their first innings. Dan Lawrence and Rory Burns both top scored with 81, and Trent Boult took 4 wickets for New Zealand. New Zealand, in their first innings, all out for 388. Will Young top scored with 82, and Stuart Broad took 4 wickets for England. England, in their second innings, all out for 122. Mark Wood top scored with 29. Neil Wagner and Matt Henry both took 3 wickets for New Zealand. New Zealand needed 38 runs to win the test match. They finished on 2 for 41. Tom Latham top scored with 23 not out. Ollie Stone and Stuart Broad took 1 wicket each for England. New Zealand won by 8 wickets and won the series 1-0, and Matt Henry was named man of the match. What were the key moments and key factors from this second test match between England and New Zealand from Edgbaston? New Zealand's bowling in the first innings was key to keep England to 303 all out in the first innings. New Zealand's first innings batting was key as well. They managed to get 388 to get a first innings lead of 85 runs. New Zealand's second innings bowling was key to them in their victory in this test match to dismiss England for 122, as England had yet another batting collapse, which led to New Zealand chasing 38 runs to win the test match and win the series 1-0. Those were the key moments and key factors from the second test match between England and New Zealand from Edgbaston. Let's have a look at England's team performance in this second test match from Edgbaston. We'll start with their batsmen. Burns 81-0, Sibley 35-8, Crawley 0-17, Root 4-11, Pope 19-23, Lawrence 81 not out and 0, and Bracey 0-8. That's how the batsmen performed for England in this second test match from Edgbaston. It was a poor batting display from England. It was a pathetic performance in the end, especially the second innings of this test match. We'll get to that a bit later. But let's talk about the first innings. They made 303 in the first innings, which wasn't a good score on this flat Edgbaston surface. Not a match-winning score by any means of the imagination. They lost wickets at regular intervals in that first innings. 1 for 72, 2 for 73, 3 for 85, 4 for 127, 5 for 169, 6 for 175, 7 for 222, 8 for 288, 9 for 289, and 303 all out. Burns and Sibley got them off to a good start in their first innings, adding 72 for the first wicket, but the partnerships after that were poor. 1, 12, 42, 42, 6, 47, 66, 1, and 14. Burns and Lawrence innings helped them reach that 303 score. Lawrence's partnerships with the lower order also contributed to England getting to that 303 score in the first innings. He added 47 for the 7th wicket with Stone for the 7th wicket, and Mark Wood, he added 66 for the 8th wicket with him. Helped England as well reach that 303 score. Didn't really capitalise in the first innings, England. 303 isn't a match-winning score. Need a score of 400, 450 plus to put yourself into a good position to win the test match. Unfortunately, they did not capitalise in their first innings. We come to their second innings batting, which was a pathetic, poor performance from the England batsmen. An inexperienced batting lineup, which had a batting collapse, and it ended pretty badly for England in this test match. They lost wickets at regular intervals in their second innings. 1 for 0, 2 for 17, 3 for 30, 4 for 58, 5 for 58, 6 for 71, 7 for 76, 8 for 120, 9 for 121, and 122 all out. The partnerships were poor as well. 0, 17, 13, 28, 0, 13, 5, 44, 1, and 1. which led to another batting collapse from England, which is all too often with this England side. Too many batting collapses. In the end, England set New Zealand 38 runs to win the Test match. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough. Obviously, all the batsmen played reckless shots in this innings, not taking responsibility for their batting, not putting a high price on their wicket. There was no fight, no discipline with their batting at all in this second innings. Didn't care and just gave up, really. The batting collapse from England lost them this Test match, obviously. They struggled mentally, lacked confidence, lacked self-belief, didn't find a way to get through the tough periods like New Zealand did in their first innings. Didn't read the game situation well. And the game situation for for England was this. They needed to wipe out New Zealand's lead of 85 runs, and they had days 3, 4 and 5 still left to go in this Test match to get a result in this Test match and bat well and set New Zealand a very good target to chase down. They needed to get in and get set as batsmen, be patient and be disciplined with their batting, then start building a big lead, as I said before, and set New Zealand a big target to chase down in the last innings. Instead of doing that, they had a batting collapse which has happened too often for this England side. Now, the lower order has scored most of England's runs in this Test match and showed the top order batsmen that you can still bat on this pitch and it's not hard to score runs on because it was a pretty much flat surface at Edgbaston. Pretty much still good for batting. Not the job of the lower order to score the runs. It's up to the top order and middle order to score most of the runs for the team. The partnerships from the lower order in this Test match were as follows. In the first innings, it was Stone and Lawrence for the 7th wicket. They added 47 together. The first innings, Wood and Lawrence for the 8th wicket added 66. And for the second innings, Wood and Stone added 44 for the 8th wicket. So it just shows that England's lower order got most of the runs and their top order and middle order batted poorly in this Test match. And overall, England's batting was poor, really. This was a poor performance from them. This is probably one of England's lowest batting performances ever in their history. Absolutely horrible. It was like a horror show. And it was an absolute nightmare from England. Once one wicket fell, the rest fell, they collapsed, and they badly lost this Test match. So some of England's batsmen who played in this Test match will be worried about their spots in this England Test team because there are other batsmen waiting to take their spots. And they'll be very anxious ahead of the India series if they are still going to play in this side. Overall, it was a poor display from England's batsmen, disappointing effort, pathetic effort, a terrible batting collapse, and there's a lot of work to do for the England team. Let's have a look at their bowlers and talk about their performance in this Test match. Stone took 3 wickets, 2 wickets for Wood, 5 wickets for Broad, a wicket for Anderson, a wicket for Lawrence, and no wickets to Joe Root. I thought England bowled well in this Test match. I think their bowling was their one positive from this Test match, England. Their lines and lengths were consistent throughout the Test match. They executed their plans well with the ball, picked up wickets at regular intervals throughout the first innings, in New Zealand's first innings, I should say. Did well to keep New Zealand to 388 on a Edgbaston surface, which was pretty good for batting. New Zealand were 3 for 229 at stumps on day 2 and were bowled out for 388 on day 3. England bowled well because New Zealand would have gotten a big first innings lead. The lead New Zealand got in the end was 85 runs in the first innings. So good effort from the England bowlers to do that on a flat Edgbaston surface. Anderson and Broad bowled well as always, taking wickets in this Test match, but didn't have the significant contribution in terms of wickets. But it was up to England's change bowlers who got most of the wickets and who impressed the most in Ollie Stone and Mark Wood. Once again taking wickets, and good to see them take wickets as they are England's future once Anderson and Broad eventually retire. So good to see them chipping in and contributing nicely. So overall, England's bowling was pretty good in this Test match. Unfortunately, their batsmen let down the bowlers, obviously, because the bowlers put in all the hard work. Unfortunately, the batsmen couldn't repay them. But overall, I thought their bowling was very good, England, in this Test match. Overall, England will be very disappointed with their performance in this Test match. The bowlers bowled well and fought hard, whereas the batsmen will be extremely disappointed with their performance in this match, especially in the second innings with that horrible batting collapse. Let's have a look at New Zealand's team performance in this second test match from Edgbaston. We'll start with their batsmen. Latham, 6 and 23 not out. Conway, 80 and 3. Young, 82 and 8. Taylor, 80 and 0 not out. Nichols, 21. Blundell, 34. And Mitchell, 6. That's how the New Zealand batsmen performed in this second test match from Edgbaston. I thought New Zealand batted well in this test match. They showed a lot of fight, resilience, mental toughness, discipline with their batting. They were patient as well. They just absolutely showed us why they are a good batting side, and they showed us in this test match. They made 338 in the first innings, which was a good first innings score, which got them the first innings lead, which was 85 runs, which was a very handy lead in this test match. Some good contributions from Conway, who impresses us still, Young and Taylor, and also the partnerships as well were key as well. In terms of backing up partnerships, New Zealand did that quite well in this test match. 122 for the second wicket between Conway and Young, 92 for the third wicket between Taylor and Young, and 63 for the fourth wicket between Taylor and Nichols, contributed to New Zealand getting that first innings score of 388. As I said before, it also got them a first innings lead of 85 runs over England, which was a handy lead and put New Zealand into a good position. So that's what I liked about New Zealand, is their ability to back up partnerships. That's very important when you're batting. You've got to back up the partnerships, and New Zealand did that very well in this test match. And I thought they also read the match situation well. They needed to know what the match situation was, and they played accordingly to the match situation, New Zealand. The situation of the match was they needed to make sure that they had wickets in hand, build partnerships, someone to get a big score and get in and get set on this surface here at Edgbaston, get a first innings lead, be patient, be disciplined, get in and get set as a batsman and cash in. And that's what they did. They batted accordingly to the situation. And England were bowling well, and the ball was doing a bit under gloomy conditions on day 2. It was a bit overcast, the lights were on at Edgbaston, and they found a way to get through that tough period towards the end of day 2. And they showed a lot of fight, resilience, mental toughness, and they found a way to get through the tough periods when England bowlers were bowling well to them in the first innings. Compared that to England's batting, England did not find a way to get through those tough periods. Compare it to New Zealand, they did find a way to get through that tough period, and they had success. Ross Taylor, to me, was the one example of that, because Ross Taylor, as we all know, he's not a very good starter when he first comes into the crease. He's quite nervous, as all batsmen are, but he's very nervous. But once he gets in and gets set, he's a very fine player, Ross Taylor. He always has been for New Zealand, one of New Zealand's great batsmen. And he was a bit scratchy to start his innings, but he managed to find a way to get through that, and he formed a partnership with Will Young, which was 92 for the third wicket. And together, that pair took them to stumps on day 2, and New Zealand were 3 for 229 at stumps on day 2, and they went on to get 388 and a lead of 85 runs in the first innings, all thanks to Taylor and Young, who found a way to get through that tough situation where the lights were on, the ball was swinging a bit under gloomy conditions. You know, Anderson and Broad, the England bowlers bowling well. That partnership was crucial, and that helped New Zealand win this test match, because those runs were valuable and they helped New Zealand, as I said before, get a victory in this test match. And they managed to find a way to get through that tough period. And that's what I liked about New Zealand in this test match in general, and also for the series. They batted well to the situation. They read the situation well. They knew what to do in those types of situations, and they batted accordingly to those situations, which was a brilliant job from them. Overall, New Zealand's batting was very good. You know, their batting in this series has been very good. They've got a quality batting lineup full of class players, and Latham, Conway, Will Young on the rise, Taylor, Nichols gets on with it. Blundell's pretty good. Even Kane Williamson, who didn't play in this test match, is pretty good as well, obviously. They're a very well-balanced batting unit. Compare that to England, who are struggling with their batting order at the moment. New Zealand are a nice, cohesive side in terms of their batting, and it showed in this series with their batting. So overall, their batting was very good, and it helped them win this test match. Let's talk about their bowlers and have a look at their bowlers' performance in this test match. Wagner took 4 wickets, 6 wickets for Henry, 4 wickets for Patel, 6 wickets for Bolt, and no wickets for Mitchell. That's how the New Zealand bowlers performed in this second test match here at Edgbaston. Their bowlers were superb. Their bowlers were really good, New Zealand. Their lines and lengths were consistent and relentless. They didn't let up, which put England under pressure, especially in the second innings where England had a batting collapse. Did well to keep England to 303 in the first innings after losing the toss, which is a fantastic effort from the New Zealand bowlers. They bowled well in England's second innings, obviously, to bowl them out for 122. All of the bowlers contributed nicely and all picked up wickets. Southey and Jamieson didn't play in this test match, but the bowlers who came in for them, Bolt, Henry, Patel and Mitchell, did a very good job in their absence, along with Neil Wagner helping him out as well. All picked up wickets and contributed nicely to this New Zealand bowling attack, which is a quality attack. Even though they didn't have Southey and Jamieson, it's still a very good attack from New Zealand, which was very good, I should say, on their point of view in terms of getting the job done and bowling England out in this test match. They built pressure nicely with the ball, which created chances and wickets. And overall, it was a brilliant job with the ball, especially in the second innings where they bowled England out for 122. It just shows England's weaknesses with their batting, but it also shows how good New Zealand's bowling is. And they were able to do that throughout this whole test match. So very good signs for New Zealand going forward with their bowling. Even their second-tier bowlers, as you would say, can still get the job done. And that's what they did in this test match against England here at Edgbaston. So overall, their bowling was fantastic. I can't really fault it, really. They just were relentless in their lines and lengths. Their pressure was relentless, and they got the results in terms of wickets. And obviously, their bowling attack contributed to them winning this test match, which was a fantastic effort from them. Overall, New Zealand will be very happy with this victory. They played good cricket and dominated this test match and deserved their series win. This will give them lots of confidence heading into the WTC final against India. My thoughts on the test match: it was a dominant display from New Zealand, showing us why they are in the WTC final. Dominated with the bat and the ball in this test match, and despite making 6 changes to their team, it shows their bench strength is very good, as they were able to still get the job done and win the test match. This will give them lots of confidence heading into the WTC final against India. For England, they will be doing a lot of soul-searching after this defeat. They will be disappointed with the result and their performance, and it shows that they need to fix a lot of things in their test team. Their batsmen will be disappointed with their performance in this test match and have a lot of work to do. If they don't fix the issues with their team, it could be a very long summer ahead. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get the latest episodes of the podcast, and like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.